welcome everyone. I'm thrilled to see such a diverse audience here today, including some of our apprentices, industry experts and advocates for gender equality. Before we dive into our panel discussion, let's address the elephant in the room, the persistent myths and stereotypes that hinder progress. These misconceptions don't just affect women, they cast shadows over entire industries. And today we'll shine a light on these myths. Just to highlight a few that we've come across over time, since Chris and I, anyway, have been working in this space. Women aren't suited for physically demanding trades. Women are a distraction to men on work sites. Apprenticeships aren't valuable as university pathways, and women will only leave to start families. Now let's meet our esteemed panel of industry experts. We have Kesaia Tanaku, Apprentice Operations Programs Manager with Ausgrid, Kasey Freckleton, Female Participation Advisor, Sydney Children's Hospital, John Holland, Matt Buttigieg, I'm always forgetting how to pronounce your name, sorry Matt, and Paul Clancy, Technical Capabilities Managers at Komatsu, Australia, and Donnella Little, Next Generation Senior Project Manager with Urban Core. Thank you all for joining us. Let's amplify women's voice, debunk myths, and create a more inclusive industry landscape. As someone once said to me, progress happens when we question the status quo. So let me just introduce, and we might just get started. Can you all tell us your name and a little bit about yourselves? Maybe start with Kesaia.
Hi everyone, I'm Kesaia. I am the Apprentice Operations Program Manager at Ausgrid, and about 15 years ago I started my apprenticeship at Ausgrid as an electrical apprentice and have been in the power industry since. Very passionate about women in trades, especially in my community, my COLD community, cultural and linguistically diverse, if you haven't heard of that before. And am a proud Tongan. So looking forward to hearing the others on the panel, but also sharing my story as well.
Wonderful. And Kasey?
Hi all, my name's Kasey. I am working for John Holland on the Sydney Children's Hospital project. I'm the Female Participation Advisor, and I have a weird and wacky history and roundabout way of coming into the construction industry about 5 years ago.
Beautiful. Matt and Paul?
Hi everyone. So I'm Matt. I work for Komatsu, Australia. What I do there is I work with the apprentices in New South Wales, make sure they get their training, what they need to complete their apprenticeship. My background is in the trades. I completed my apprenticeship with Komatsu, and that was 34 years ago now, in the plant mechanic trade. So.
And my name's Paul. I work in the same team as Matt. I'm the Technical Capability Manager that looks after our parts apprentices. So I've got apprentices all over the country that I look after. And yeah, just make sure that they complete their trade requirements as well as their internal Komatsu training as well.
Beautiful. And Donnella?
Hi, I'm Donnella. I have been in the construction industry for around 30 years. I'm currently working as a senior project manager for Urban Core. I'm also very passionate about getting more women into the construction industry and has joined Next Generation with Urban Core as an ambassador to try and get the word out there and entice more young women into the industry as well.
So as you can see, we've got some incredibly passionate employers who all work tirelessly within their industries to increase the participation of women in trades. So Kesaia, we might kickstart off and ask you a few questions. Obviously, she's an electrician. She's also a role model for Pacific Islander women and also Ausgrid's supporter for women in trades. How did you navigate cultural stereotypes or biases?
Very good question. And it would be probably remiss of me to not sort of set this context or stage of sort of my culture as well. So like I mentioned before, Tongan, if people don't know where Tonga is, it's nestled in the South Pacific, next to Fiji, which is probably a more well-known cousin of ours. beautiful white beaches about 5 hours away from Sydney, coral reefs, tropical rainforest. We're actually still a monarchy and an indigenous monarchy as well, one of the only ones left in the Pacific Islands. And I'm very proud of my heritage. If I could sum it up in terms of our values, probably 3 Fs. So family, faith, and food. We love food. And we are very much a collective culture. So reciprocity, respect, service, and respect is a very big one. We're very loyal and we have a can-do attitude as well. That being said, very conservative. So rigid in our gender roles, you know, like a man is the one that works, a woman is the one that sort of stays at home in the kitchen, looks after the family and the kids, even to the point where still in Tonga, Sunday is a sacred day where all businesses are closed. Women still aren't able to own land. They can lease land, but they can't own it. And so I am the child of immigrant parents, so first generation here in Australia. So with that comes a fair few challenges in terms of navigating your Tonganness and your Australianness. And sometimes those two can very much butt heads. You know, Australia is always seen as the land of opportunity. And we were lucky enough in our family where we had parents who were very open-minded and wanted us to sort of just get in and make the most of all the opportunities that Australia had to offer. Tonga is still a developing nation. If I can compare its capital city, it would be sort of like your local shops. There's no traffic lights and infrastructure resources very limited, particularly when it comes to education too. So for me as a first generation and for many others who are in the same boat and may resonate with elements of my story, it's more so about survival because we seek financial security and education is a big thing in terms of having that university degree is always seen with prestige because we are quite hierarchical in our culture too. And that prestige is well looked upon and sort of, you know, those misconceptions around, or you learn heaps and you earn heaps of money as a lawyer, doctor, and engineer type thing. So I was very lucky, like I said before, in terms of my parents, they pushed education. I actually loved maths and science. That was something that I was very keen on pursuing a pathway in, and was very much looking at university as an option. And it was my dad actually that encouraged me. And this is the case for a lot of stories that I hear. It's usually someone that you know that's in the industry that encouraged me to look at an apprenticeship. So it was lots of conversations back and forth when I was 17, about to finish. And he was the one that actually shifted my mindset. And again, I think the main thing with this is awareness and misinformation. And just when I was talking to cousins and friends about what I was doing in terms of an apprenticeship, they were just like, oh, why are you doing that? Like, you could be going to uni. But then I told them all the rewards and the benefits of being able to earn while you learn. You're gaining skills, practical skills, life skills, you know, that they now come back around and probably take advantage of. Knowing that you're in the trades too. So those were some of the biases. And it's funny that most of it actually came from internally from the community, just based on our culture and how it's structured.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, you mentioned obviously quite a few challenges there. What sort of challenges did you face as a female apprentice? You know, have things since changed, in your opinion and experience?
I'm glad to say things have changed. I think the biggest shock for me was just I recall very vividly starting on my first day, and I was lucky enough to have 5 other females with me, but it was very jarring to have to walk into spaces where you're the only female on site. So I was able to build connections. At that time, we had a training center where we were for a year before we went out and rotated with the field teams. I think the other part of it is you're quite young as well. So I started after year 12. So you're working with people that are, so many years older than you, just generational differences too. And then you're so young and impressionable at that stage, you sort of sometimes don't feel like you can speak up and raise your voice and your concerns. The other thing was just the conversations on site, very different, the bit of banter here and there. Some of the perceptions around your capability to do manual tasks too. And the other thing was just previous tool experience. You don't really have that opportunity, more so as a female. And I think particularly in the cold community where, at a young age, you're with your dad in the shed and he's the one that calls you to come help with different things. The other thing is probably amenities too, but I'm glad to see that there are improvements. That being said, probably on a spectrum we've improved, but there's still ways to go across all of those things. And the big thing I think is just support and the momentum in terms of the shift where we're seeing a lot more women come into trade. And I think as that momentum builds, we'll be able to tip the scale and and just create more inclusive and diverse working environments on construction sites particularly.
Yeah, it's good that it's moving in the right direction anyway. What support does Ausgrid have in place for new apprentices?
So we're very very, very conscious that as apprentices, this is the start of we hope, a long career at Ausgrid. So we're very mindful around their experience even before they've walked through the door. We've got very comprehensive onboarding and induction period in the first few months before they go out and rotate into the field teams, where we try our very best to set them up for success, and that's giving them just the base and foundational knowledge and skills to be able to get in there and meaningfully contribute to the field teams as well, because I think that adds to their experience. The other thing is they've obviously got the program team to support, and I'm a team of 2 at the moment. And what's really great is having a woman with some lived experience being able to help shape the program as well. We create a network between the different years. So we assign a buddy to a first year across the different years. So they've got someone else to talk through just potentially silly questions that they think in their mind they're not comfortable enough to go to myself or others, or supervising tradies, that is to say. And we've done a lot of space in the diversity inclusion area, and is a really big focus for us at Ausgrid in terms of educating not only the apprentices, but I think all the people that work with apprentices around, what's acceptable, how you should coach your apprentice, the different learning styles, different communication styles as well that come with a diverse bunch of apprentices. The other thing we've got is an awesome Grid 25 group. So it's an employee resource group that's all about attracting and retaining women in the field and in STEM roles. So it looks at PPE for women. Some of the things we've been able to roll out is hygiene packs to the different depots as well. So not being afraid to talk about periods on site. And then the other thing that was a first for us last year is we got together as distribution network providers and held a Women in Field conference between Ausgrid, Endeavour and Essential Energy.
Yeah, brilliant.
So a lot.
Yeah, gosh, that's amazing. There's probably a few people that have joined, that might be actually considering a trade. So what advice would you give to other women that are actually, considering a trade career?
I would say follow your curiosity, seek as much information as you can. Like by being on this webinar in itself, just you're hearing stories from people that have done it before you or people in the industry as well. If you're at school, talk to your careers advisor. They're great in terms of linking into industry, and just seek others out. Get as much information as you can. Ask questions. I think there is a big misconception that, you know, we can't do it, but we can. And when I look back on my journey, there was a lot of apprehension, but I look back on it with actually fondly. So don't get me wrong, it was a challenge, and you learn to be resilient, and you learn life skills and determination as well along the way, but it's so worth it. It's super rewarding.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks, Kesaia. It's always great to learn about other people's backgrounds as well. You know, these things help us culturally grow and understand more as well. So great insights there. Thank you. Kasey. So Kasey's the female participation advisor for the Sydney Children's Hospital Stage 1 and Mendaroo Children's Comprehensive Cancer Centre. Role developed specifically to increase participation of women in trades. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about your role, Kasey, and why it was developed.
So my role is a bit of a special one. It's not quite one of a kind, but almost. There's a few of us around. So my role is funded by Infrastructure New South Wales and administered by the Department of Education. And there is a group of us on a community of practice with the Women in Construction program that is sort of run under the ISLP program. That's kind of where it all fits in. And I report into the Department of Education monthly on, you know, all the initiatives we're doing on site and where we're going in terms of how many women we have on site in non-traditional roles and in trade roles, and then women involved in the project just in general. And all that reporting gets collected from, I think we're up to 19 project officers, which is the same thing I do, across something like, there's more than 20 projects that they're across now. And we're all gathering information on all the different things we're doing. And basically it's been formed to inform policy change around what they'll put in place for more women coming into construction on government projects. So because they can influence government projects, that is now sort of what they're working towards. So Infrastructure New South Wales are looking to hit 30% by 2030. And this pilot program is sort of like a fact-finding mission, if you like, with tier 1s down to tier 4s, reporting back to try and hit our targets. Our targets are 4% women in trades and 7% women in non-traditional roles. So not quite the 30%, but we can't go from 0 to 100 in, you know, a year. It's just not a thing. And I think if they did try that, it'd be far more detrimental to women on site than it would productive. So I think they've gone about it a really great way in terms of, you know, slowly testing the waters, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't, so they can start filtering this out to wider industry. And then, you know, slowly moving towards the goal of 30 by 30. So, yeah.
Amazing. What initiatives or policies, you know, the government and industry are championing for women in construction? Like what are those policies?
So one is, one of the initiatives is the Women in Construction pilot program that I'm a part of with the Department of Education. So I am an employee of John Holland, but we receive grant funding for my role through this program. And then the ISLP is another program. Industry is doing the Culture in Construction Task Force. I don't know if you guys have heard about that, but that is a program that's basically working towards the health and wellbeing, flexibility and diversity on sites within construction to try and build a culture standard for the industry. Sorry, there's so many words and there's so many C's, so many cultures and constructions. So that task force has run through 5 different projects, and Sydney Children's is one of the pilot projects. So we have a 5-day working week on site. If we go to 6 days, everybody has to be consulted. We are putting in initiatives around mental health, around wellness. We're making sure there's flexible working for John Holland, and that it's filtering down into our subcontractors, and we're having conversations with them about flexible working. And then there's also grant funding programs which are available quite a lot through state and federal governments that are all about getting more women into construction. So there's quite a bit going on. I know the Infrastructure New South Wales team are doing a lot of work around advertising and campaigning for more women to come over into construction. So there's a lot going on in New South Wales in particular, trying to break down, you know, some of the myths that surround women coming over into construction.
Yeah, amazing. What misconceptions about female apprentices and tradeswomen do you encounter most frequently?
The biggest one is that women aren't strong enough to do the work, and that the guys on site will have to pick up the slack for them. That's a big one. We actually did a workforce survey that came back with those 2 things. There's a pretty high response. And I find that really interesting as a person who is constantly being called on by my partner to come and help him lift things. I just find it amusing, because I know that, you know, everyone's body has the ability to get stronger. So it's just conditioning, and over time they do get stronger. Now don't get me wrong, I completely understand that biologically speaking there are differences in the human bodies between a female and a male, but I have never met a woman that is not stubborn or determined enough to just get it done. And I feel like in the industry, you have to have determination, and you have to have a good work ethic just across the board if you're going to make it in the industry. So I've never met a woman who would ever let that happen. And
there's also restrictions too, right, Kasey? On
that's
on
exactly
lifting,
right. They have lifting
on
restrictions to
lifting.
protect everybody in the
Yeah.
industry, because, you know, there's so many men who are out there who are, you know, going off on workers' compensation, or their backs are not able to carry on past 40 years old because they're just doing too much. Like, it's too much for their bodies. So it's just not. There's so many protecting procedures and policies in place these days that it's just not a thing that you have to worry about. And the other one is that no one wants women working on site, which honestly, I kind of started this job thinking that was going to be my biggest battle. And we did this workforce survey, and 84% felt great or good about having women on site. Like, only 15% had either they had neutral, or like the tiniest percentage were like, I don't want to have women on site. It was like 1 or 2% or something.
Yeah, minority.
So, you know, everyone else was just like, yeah, great. We don't mind. If they're going to come and do the job and they're going to work, it doesn't matter. So I think that was a big eye opener for me. And every single one of our subcontractors have been really open to the initiative through Women in Construction, and like, what do we do? Where do we start? How can you help me? So it's been amazing.
Yeah, brilliant to hear. In your experience or opinion, how can industry make a substantial difference?
So I read a study the other day. I can't remember which one because I read a lot of research, but 33% is the tipping point for change to happen. At 33%, we will start to see significant change that is positive for the better in terms of diversity and culture in the construction industry. And I think that is something that we should all be working towards, simply because at the moment the suicide rates in construction are horrendous. They're way too high. And if we can get more diversity into construction, it's proven in other industries that it will help with that particular issue. So, you know, one of the reasons why I do this job is because I'm fighting for the guys out there. I'm fighting to make it a better place for them to work as well. So, and that sort of leads into my next point, which is working on improving culture for everyone in the industry. So it's not just about bringing more women in, it's about everyone and making it a better place for everyone and looking out for everyone on site. Employers talking to employees about what flexible working looks like to each individual person, because it's different for everyone. There's certainly jobs in construction, most of them, let's be honest, that can't be done from home. It's just not a thing. You know, you can't be an electrician and work from home one day unless you're doing your own electrical work. And I don't think your boss is going to want to pay you for that. So working from home is just kind of not an option. So, you know, flexible working for individuals in construction might be leaving work early one day a week so that they can go and do, you know, go to the doctor's appointments or pick up the kids, or, you know, maybe they come in late one day and they're doing school drop off or whatever it is. But there's just so many options for flexible working that doesn't just have to be working from home. And I think it's important that employers are talking about that. And I think most of the tier ones are, but it's as you filter down into, you know, the lower tiers. Okay, tier ones, tier twos, and tier threes are probably doing that. But as you start to filter down into the smaller organizations, it starts to get lost around flexibility. And then the last one is education. Education is such a big part. Education of, you know, girls in schools, women in society, educating workforce, educating, you know, the bosses and the managers and the supervisors on site. It's honestly, it's a huge education piece. That's, I think, where the biggest difference is going to be made. Just helping people to understand, you know, what the industry is actually like and why it's a good industry to be a part of. Oh, I say good industry, I mean great industry to be a part of. And, you know, and all the benefits of working in construction, because there are so many of them. And, you know, my favorite benefit to talk about is that you get to drive past the project you help build later on and be like, I did that. It's the best feeling.
Highlighted so many great things. Thanks, Kasey. Like, there looks like there's a lot of support from John Holland to achieve 30 by 30. And I love the culture standard task. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it is. It's a great piece of work, and hopefully something really, I mean, something positive will come out of it. I just hope it's embraced by the industry as a whole.
Yeah, I hope so as well. So we've got Matt and Paul. They're both technical capability managers with Komatsu Australia. Thanks, guys, for joining us. You guys are doing so much with being out there supporting women in trades. You know, it's just brilliant. Thanks so much for coming and spending some time with us. What strategies have you employed to increase diversity with Komatsu?
I think so. We've got a target with Komatsu, and it's a 25% target for 2025. Yeah, for next year. But it's a slow and steady approach, and I think we heard this talked to by Kasey there. Just so we get the right people that are interested in it, but it's yeah, making sure that we've got a target so we can have a really realistic target to meet.
Yeah, awesome.
I think the more school interactions as well that we're doing a lot of that. We were just at one today, and we do a lot with yourselves there at VERTO. We do trade, speed networking, making sure we're actually talking to the students themselves, whether at school, to let them know that it's okay. It's not unusual now for women to be in trades, because we've got a lot of them in there now.
Yeah, I think reaching those young people, especially the young girls, the school age girls, at trade events or careers expos and those sorts of things, and just letting them know the door is well and truly open for them to go into those non-traditional trades. I think is a big step that we do, because traditionally working in the construction and mining industry, it's the old attitude that it is a boys' club. It's been there like that way for hundreds of years, but there is a very steady turning tide where we welcome and want women in these trades and in these industries. So getting out to events like that, I think it's a massive step that we take to make sure that those girls that are in year 9 and year 10, year 11, or whatever it might be, that after school, that this is a very viable option for them.
Yeah, you guys are so proactive in that space, and just to see the girls as well, they just enjoy it so much. It's just something that they've never considered before too. Yeah, it's fantastic. Why does Komatsu invest so much time in diversifying the workplace, and what are the benefits
Well,
you guys are experiencing?
yeah, it's no secret. There's a big trade shortage out there, so we need to look outside the box of what used to be the norm. We need a lot of different type of people are applying for jobs. So it's not just the male dominant. So we want to make sure that we've got also females applying for the same jobs. We need to fill these positions. In actual fact, the girls do a lot better with their documentation, their paperwork inside apprenticeships to get the work completed anyway. So
Bit more attention to detail, perhaps.
100%.
It's always good to hear.
We also have a social responsibility, I guess. We need to lead by example, and that is making sure that we do employ a diverse workforce.
Yeah, beautiful. What steps have Komatsu taken to ensure, I suppose, a safe and respectful work environment for everyone?
One thing that, because I've been in the trade for a long time, and one thing that's stamped out, it's been stamped out for a long time now, is the hazing. I mean, that's something that's not tolerated. No one talks about it anymore because they know it's something that just does not happen anymore. I mean, at Komatsu, I've never heard of it. So that's gone a long time ago, which is great. The amenities, big change in the workshops. So I know we've got some space to work on that at the moment, but we are doing that to make it, because we're getting a lot more females in the workplace now. So sometimes that one restroom is just not enough now. So it needs to be increased. There needs to be more put in. So we're investing a lot of time and money in that side of it as well.
Yeah, awesome.
Also, we have policies around any of this too. Our HR BPs, that they've been working a lot in that space and releasing policies on respect at work, doing workshops with the people in the workplace, just making sure everyone's aware that it's just not acceptable with the way that people are used to talk in the workplace. So.
And to change those attitudes, like our HR teams, we've implemented things like a say again policy. So if somebody says something that you think's a little bit, how's you going, and not quite there, you can go say again and just prompts that person to think about what they've said and maybe reevaluate what they've said. So it's all about changing that mindset within the workplace that these policies have been put in to make it a more inclusive and enjoyable environment for everybody.
Like that.
Zero tolerance for bullying and harassment as well.
Yeah, wonderful. So what critical changes must we make to face the future effectively, and how can we advance the trades industry?
So I think the big one is just attitude, both within employers like Komatsu and within the industry, but also within our customer base as well. That everybody is able to complete the work. It's not just a men's only. You've got to be a bloke to be able to spin spinners and fix machines. It's that attitude is well and truly gone. I can tell stories like being from the parts world. I can tell a quick story of one of my female apprentices who took a phone call in our support centre one day, and the old fella on the phone said straight away, I want to speak to one of the boys. And she's gone, look, unfortunately, they're all busy at the moment. I do the same role. I might be able to help you. Very begrudgingly, he told her what he needed. She got him sorted, got the parts out to him, the correct parts first time from that moment on, that old bloke only ever wanted to speak to her and refused to speak to anybody else bar Sheridan. So that attitude amongst both employers and customers in our space is a big step that needs to evolve and change, and we're working hard on that.
Yeah.
Also, at the school level too, is that if there's jobs being talked about, a lot of the time we hear, you know, are you interested in a trade? If you want to be a mechanic or electrician or plumber, a lot of the times that we get responses like, oh, no, she's a girl, she's not into that sort of stuff, she won't be into that sort of stuff. Well, we need to change that mentality. It's not about she's a girl, she's not going to be into it. What sort of interest does that person have, and are they going to be suited for that job? Would they like to give it a try? There's a lot of ways that they can, anyone can test out if they're interested in work, and it's not just something that could be from playing with cars when you're brought up as a young person. It could be, you know, let's go try a week at the workplace for a work experience and see if you actually, it's something that you can do.
Half of our battle at sort of careers expos and careers expos, especially where parents come along with young people, is actually winning over mum. If they're there with their daughter, their daughter's keen. It's actually, I know I've had to have the conversation with mum who's there with a daughter, and about the way that we are accepting of women in the workplace and that changing mentality. And by the end of it, mum's well and truly on board. So I think sometimes, like speaking of attitude, there's a little bit of a battle inside the homes, a little bit for the daughters to be able to convince mum that, hey, I can be a carpenter, I can be a mechanic, I can be an electrician, just like their older brothers or whatever it might be. So it's fighting that battle as well to change that attitude and mentality. And I think yeah, it's once you actually have those conversations with the parents that their little girl's going to be able to spin a spanner or swing a hammer or something like that, they're well and truly on board.
And they won't be alone, because there's other women in the industry now. We've got a fair few ladies that are doing apprenticeships that are actually in the trade, qualified now, so they won't be alone in there. But there's also that we always come back to it. You know, girl, you can't lift that. You're not going to be able to lift that. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. You shouldn't be lifting that volume anyway. So we need to go back to pick. If you're going to lift something heavy, you need someone to give you a hand with that, or use cranes, jacks, whatever. There's tools there that can be used for that sort of situation. We do have a lot of young people and old people who are going around with bad backs, and it's because they've been lifted up those items that they can physically lift it, but it's not really meant to be lifted by an individual. So yeah, girls they don't need to be strong to be in this industry.
Yeah, absolutely not. No. I remember back in the day having to do the, assessment on how to pick up boxes. I'm sure it's the same in every industry. There's always got to be a limit as to what you can do.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt and Paul. Getting the right people and adapting to change, it's so key. And it should be the best person, for the role. It's a deciding factor. And I like the say it again policy. I think that's great. Thanks so much. So Donnella is our last spokesperson on the panel. Hi, Donnella. So she's from Next Generation Senior Project Manager with Urban Core. Currently, they have a 50% women to men ratio and 30 years in construction, which is brilliant. What motivated you to pursue a career in the construction industry, and why do you continue?
So I've been around building my whole life. My dad's a builder. So I was the son that he never had. I was the one that got taken out to the building sites when I was 3 years old and given a hammer and a piece of wood and some nails and sat there while he built the big house and I built my little one on the floor. I've loved it ever since I was little, ever since I can remember. And I got into a job when I was 16, 17 years old working in a joinery. So at the time I was sort of designing kitchens, going out, check measuring them, but every weekend I was out in the factory with all the boys and they were teaching me how to use the tools and putting the kitchens together and things like that. And my time in the industry just grew from there, from joinery into building, construction. Owned a business with my ex-husband in a building company, but I've loved it. Like I just enjoy it. I find it really rewarding in the sense that you get to see things grow, you get to help build something and be a part of it and see the end. And my love for construction just keeps growing. So I've evolved throughout those 30 years into different roles, and I keep doing it because it's rewarding. Even though it's challenging, it's very rewarding.
And what are some of the challenges you've seen in the last 30 years towards women in trades and on construction sites?
Obviously back then it was very much the boys club mentality. I've sort of come through that from the very beginning, and I think Kesaia mentioned it earlier, when you are that young and you are on construction sites and you're trying to speak to either trades or clients, they don't believe that you know what you're talking about. They don't see that you have a technical mind, that you couldn't really give them advice or understand what's going on. So just overcoming that through the years, you had to learn to be really resilient, and you had to prove yourself time and time again, because it wasn't a place for women back then. It was difficult. There wasn't any other women on construction sites back in those days. It's probably only been really in the last 10 years that I've seen more and more women as the normal now on the construction site, but certainly back 20 years ago, you'd walk onto a site, you were the only female, you had to stand your ground, you had to show them that you could do what you wanted to do or that you needed to do while you were there, and prove yourself. I suppose it was a constant battle, but luckily things are changing, and things have certainly gotten a lot better.
Yeah, it's a good step forward. What is the current biggest challenge in the construction industry for women?
I think we've all touched on it. I think it's perception, like it's the misunderstanding of what you need to be, and what you should be on a building site. It's not true what we've all said. You don't need to be physically strong. I mean, I think in the building industry, you all need to be mentally strong, but that's men and women. It's not just women as well. I think they feel that they potentially don't have anywhere to go after doing their trade or something along those lines, or can they still have a family whilst doing their trade? So I think the challenges are just around uneducation, and perception or misperception of what women are in the construction industry.
Yeah, absolutely. What initiatives or policies have Urban Core championed to improve work-life balance for women in construction?
Well, I think their whole, we are diverse, we're very diverse, and I think having the 50-50 gender diversity in the company certainly helps. So we have a lot of mentorship programs for our young cadets that are coming through, so that they're supported mentally, and they understand. We have flexible working availability there, so you can have sort of early afternoons if you need to. I know I do that with my children. You can work from home if you need to as well. So it's supporting them, and being there for them, and giving them that flexibility.
Yeah, right. And so next generation, we know a little bit about them, but do you want to tell us a little bit more about what that program looks like and what it is?
Yeah, so Next Generation's amazing. It's about educating young women, going to schools similar to what you've all been speaking about this evening, going and educating young girls, year 10, year 7, whatever, about what the construction industry can do for you. So it's not just about trades potentially, like you can start in a trade, but then you can go on and you can become project managers, and you can become estimators. There's so many different opportunities available within the industry. So it's about educating young women that there are so many opportunities out there for them, and just showing them what's available to them. It's about letting them know that it builds life skills for you as well. Like, you learn a lot of communication skills through negotiation, you learn you know, mathematics through estimating. Like, it's a varied sort of way of learning a lot more skills in life as well. So it's out there just to get the word out and to try and change the whole mentality around women in construction and to support more women in construction.
Yeah, brilliant. I suppose, you know, talking about the future and moving forward, and do you have any predictions as to what, you know, might look like in the next 5 to 10 years?
Going back on my personal experience and seeing the trajectory of the growth, I think it will become a new normal, that it will be close to a 50-50 split with women and young girls coming through the construction industry. I think it's been spoken about earlier as well, like, women do bring a lot more to the industry in the sense of being able to multitask, I suppose, a little bit, attention to detail, policies and procedures they've sort of helped champion, I guess, in certain ways. And I would hope to think that the same trajectory is going to continue, in the sense that we now, from in the last 20 years, have seen such a huge big growth. I would hope that that would double and we would get to that point where we're almost 50-50.
Yeah, 30 by 30.
30 by 30? Definitely.
It sounds good.
Thanks, Donnella.
Everyone has been so incredible. We do have one question here. If anybody else has any questions, I'll get you to pop them up now. But we've got a statement here from Kylie saying that she agrees so much on the lifting that both Kasey and I think he might have put this up when Matt was talking, and Paul. So I think Kylie is actually with workplace health and safety. So she says that we have weight restrictions now in most workplace health and safety situations. Thank you for mentioning it. Is that something you to say that you do say at those careers expos that you attend?
Kylie's from AG Coombs as well.
Oh, Kylie. Yes. Okay.
Kylie.
AJ Coombs. Thanks, Kylie.
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, Kylie, there's so much stuff that goes in to, like, gets talked about at the careers days or workshops or expos or whatever. I probably could do a little more around myths, but generally speaking, I'm talking to both male and females while I'm presenting. So, but I mean, you make a good point, putting more about myths into our chats with the young people is a really great idea. I guess from my point of view, I hit the, you can earn a lot of money and you can earn and learn and you can come out with no debt at university, because that tends to ring home with the kids. But I think that's a great point, and I will start to look at incorporating that stuff into my
Yeah, it's good to highlight.
Yeah, definitely. And Matt, we've got a question here from Annie. What does the average day look like for your female apprentices?
The day is exactly the same as everyone else. So a female apprentice mechanic is no different to a male apprentice mechanic, so that they do exactly the same jobs. So they're going in there. If they're first year apprentices, they're doing daily checks and doing all that tasks that require learning and understanding what you do around the checks to start the day off, like checking fluids and forklifts and so on. So they're on the same schedule as everyone else. So, yeah, I can't say that it's the same as any other mechanic.
Okay, thanks, Matt. This is a question for Kesaia. What was your career, again from Annie, what was your career progression to go from apprentice to your current role as apprentice mentor? And do you have any advice for current apprentices who want to become a mentor for future female apprentices?
Annie, I didn't make it in one step, just if you were wondering. So definitely had a trade behind me, but was someone that always valued continuous learning. And I forgot to mention before, I was able to go to uni, but didn't choose that as a pathway and chose the trade instead, but decided to pick that up later. But after that, I did an engineering officer role. So what that looks like in Ausgrid is they plan and schedule the work that the field does. Did that for a couple of years. After that, wanted to combine some of my study and learn about the business side of things. So there's lots of opportunities where I was able to get into the people space, into org development, and similar in terms of the early careers program around the apprenticeship program, but managed our graduate engineering program for a bit as well, worked in different people projects, and then sort of landed into transformation, which is just a fancy word for business change and improvement projects at a more higher strategic level. Did that for a couple of years, learned a lot about the corporate side of the business. And then only a year and a half ago, I sort of found myself at a ceiling with that, looked at my opportunities, what I would have brought to the table. And I think that this is a nice combination of all my experiences to date. So what I would say in terms of advice, if you're an apprentice wanting to be apprentice mentor, getting connected into industry groups like VERTO or Kasey, who's working at, that policy government sort of front is helpful too. Little things like going back to the school that you went to or any community groups that you can, and just sharing your story, because I think the common theme throughout all of the discussion today is information, education. So where you can find opportunities to share your story as well is very helpful, and you'll find that once you start getting it out there, then other people hear it and they probably want you to come and talk to a group of young females or young students as well.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I think
the
that's
other
good
thing
advice.
to add on to if you're wanting to look at becoming a mentor for future female apprentices, Tradeswomen Australia are really fantastic. They've got a lot of different programs and mentoring program which actually connects women, that might be beginning their trade journey with experienced trade women mentors. So I'll send a link through, but yeah, just thought I'd mention that that's also something you could look at too.
Does empowering women in trades as well do that, EWIT?
They do a little bit of that as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Empowered Women in Trades. There's a number of organisations that do that as well. So
Right,
definitely, we can pass on that information. So thanks, Kesaia. That was great. That was really. I think, yeah, having all of the experience and the different backgrounds and bringing that all together makes you a really solid mentor to be able to guide those apprentices. So fantastic. So a few more questions, and I'm getting conscious of the time, so I'll keep moving. Hi, I've got a question to Kasey at John Holland. I'm a blue collar worker and I've been trying to work for you guys and have reached out via Homebush, and now I got Mick Vaughan to help me, and I want to know, how do I get in the women's program for the 9 to 5 as I'm a single mother and trying to get in with John Holland?
I think you're talking about the one that's on the M7, M12 project. So that is an initiative that Tamsin, who is actually part of the community practice like I am with the Department of Education, she's part of that program as well. She put together, or the team out there put together, a program that hired women, interviewed, I think they interviewed like 20 candidates. They got over 400 applications for this program. And it was a late start program. So the women come on site at 8:45 and work their day or finish early. I can't remember the details, sorry. But it's specifically to that project because it's a pilot program. So I do, at the moment, I'm pretty sure that all of the positions are taken, but I'm sure the girls at VERTO can give you my details, and we can work out where to go from here if you're trying to get into John Holland. I'm harassing them about a number of people. I tend to do that in my job. And I just poke people until they say yes to me for finding people.
Sorry, Jessica, we'll shoot you Kasey's details, and maybe you can have an offline conversation about, you know, how you could get opportunities within John Holland that might suit your life. Yeah, brilliant. We've got one more question here from Carolyn. So Carolyn says, I've loved all of your stories shared. I'm curious about the retention of women within your organisations. Does anyone want to
go? Everyone got a response?
I can say for Urban Core, we've been at 50% diversity for 3 months now. So we have a constant stream of, we have a constant stream of females coming through, and that's not just because we try and only hire female and keep that 50%. It is legitimately because they are the right people for the job. So we were at 42% for a really long time as well. So retention of female staff in our business, for one, is quite high.
Brilliant.
Yeah, from an Ausgrid point of view, our apprentice program at the moment, 28% of our cohort are women, so we're super proud of that. Beyond, there's a little bit more work to do, but in terms of retention, very high retention. So I can only go off average years of service, which is about 15 to 20 at Ausgrid. So regardless if you're a woman or a man, you're a great place, which is well supported by its people.
Yeah, that's so good.
The mechanics at Komatsu, I don't know what the numbers are, but we tend to lose the females when they come out of their apprenticeships, or not long after, the same as what we do with males, that we're just looking for further experience elsewhere in tunnels or in the mining sector. So yeah, I think what our challenge is to have more apply, so we get more females in the workplace and have more numbers actually with retention afterwards. Yeah, so I don't know what our actual numbers are, but I know if we lose them, we're losing them to the same as we do with the males to other jobs in the industry. So they're staying inside the industry is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is what I mean. You know, it happens naturally. People move on for different benefits or money.
Chase the experience.
You train them too well. They love it. Love
but the idea is to try and go out there, earn that money or that additional experience, and then come back.
From John Holland, I couldn't tell you the numbers exactly for retention. I'm fairly certain retention for men and women in John Holland as a whole is pretty on par. There's not really much of a difference in the percentages. My job is also to look at retention industry wide, across my whole project. So I'm looking at it for subbies as well, and I'm just starting now to flick over. So I've been in the role for about a year, and I've got another year for the project, and I'm just starting to flick from finding women and getting them into jobs over to the retention side. So I'll get back to you in a year.
Thank you. Look, I'm really conscious of the time, and we could, I guess, chat about this all night. There's so many different things that we could delve into, and I think that we've just touched on the surface really, but what the information that you've provided and your insights, even for me, are extremely valuable. So thank you all. I guess I've also wanted to say thank you not only for coming today to spending your time to educate and give us your insights, but to thank you for the work that you do in not only creating inclusive work sites, but also for the work that you've done to support us and to encourage, women to start trades through, through our speed networking programs and our try trade programs and, everything that we do. So you guys are always on board, and we're very, very appreciative of that. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
As mentioned, the recording of the webinar will be available on the VERTO Women in Trades website, but I also will email a copy out to anyone that has registered, including our wonderful panelists. So, yeah, a massive thank you again. If anybody wants further information or they're going through discrimination in the workplace, feel free to reach out. We'd be happy to provide you with some resources and contacts that may be able to assist you in that area as well. But I'll leave it at that. So good night, everyone. Have a wonderful evening, and a big thank you again to all of our wonderful panelists.
Thanks, you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Guys,
night.
enjoy your evening. Thanks everyone for your time.